What is up, collectors? Coming at you with another really fun episode. I've been planning this for a few weeks. I've been very excited about it. This is the second installment of our cardboard masterpiece series where we talk about beautiful cardboard that we enjoy. My goal was to kind of bring on some fantastic creators and channels from this space. And so I've done a lot of stuff with Aaron and Jason. I thought it was time to mix it up with and bring in some fantastic experts to this conversation on the 1960s golden era of cardboard. So I'd like to introduce two fantastic channels which I enjoy a lot. They have a great eye for vintage and for cards. And I'm sure a lot of you that have subscribed to me already subscribe to them. If you haven't, you need to start. But let's start by bringing on our first expert, Joe from Redneck Collector. Welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Josh, thank you. I hope you're using that expert term loosely because I've never been accused of being an expert in anything, but I appreciate it.
For tonight, you're an expert for sure.
Thank you.
Another fellow Midwesterner who's got a fantastic channel, who was gracious enough to come on with us and also has an expert eye for vintage and for grading. He's got some fantastic videos. Welcome, Steve, Vintage on Vintage. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited. This should be fun.
This should be a lot of fun.
Should be a lot of fun.
Before we get started, I know you guys are big vintage guys. I know, Steve, you do some football as well. What is it that attracts you to a card when you're buying a card aesthetically? What are things that appeal to you?
Well, I would say that if they capture the era, we talk about before we went live tonight, we were talking about the 50s, the 40s and 50s versus the 60s and the 70s. So I think there's certain cards that they scream 60s to me. They just like the wood paneling of a 62, just it feels like. And then there's certain cards in there, without getting ahead of myself, but there's certain cards in there that capture it even more. But when they capture the essence of a player, if it's a player that's they're known to be, Ernie Banks, let's play two. He's smiling a lot of photos. It comes through. Dick Allen looks like he wants to beat your butt in a lot of photos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it captures personalities and the history of the game. I love the history of the game. I love reading about it. And so much of my collecting these days is connected to, if I'm reading a really good book, then I want that cardboard picture of that guy that makes him, come alive even more. Sometimes even more so than watching old footage. I just want to see that picture of that player, and it just speaks to me.
That's a great answer. I love that. What about you?
Yeah, that is a great answer. I agree with Joe 100%. I think it's not any one particular thing in a card, but just certain cards speak to you, whether it's the coloring, whether it's the uniform, whether it's the picture. I mean, for me, I'm older than you guys, so I actually grew up in the 60s. In 68, 69, 70, I was starting to collect baseball cards as a kid. And it's my favorite era because it brings me right back to, I'm riding on my bike with my buddy heading to the dime store to pick up baseball cards. So it's more of a nostalgia thing for me, and just certain cards just hit the button better than others.
So, Steve, I'm glad you said that, because I don't think anybody tuning in right now would think that I am younger than you. I look like Tim Allen as he's transitioning to Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And I'm just pissed off how great you look. I know you've talked about your age
Oh,
before.
what is?
Yes, this
That's
is unfair.
pretty hard to believe, Steve.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing. I don't know what your beauty care regimen is, but quite impressive.
They don't call me Vintage on Vintage for nothing.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's interesting because you have two. For me, my connection for obviously, Joe and I are both kind of junk wax collectors initially, and then we gravitated towards vintage later on in life. But you have not only the nostalgia from your childhood for collecting it, but you've kind of stuck with it. And so what brought me to vintage from the junk wax and even away from the modern is just the beauty of it compared to anything else out there, whether it be the imagery, the colors, the uniforms, the backdrop of the card itself. And so to me, it's like artwork. And that's where, when I display my cards, I like kind of experimenting with different players and color schemes, and literally like you're putting a painting on the wall. I think of the same way when I display these cards, and that's what I really enjoy. So to me, I'm a big fan of the late 40s and 50s with, Leaf and Bowman, early Bowman, and then early age of Topps, where I feel like the peak of beauty, where you really started getting into beautiful cardboard. And then the 60s kind of have their own identity. And then the 70s is a little more kind of, a little more, I don't know, kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, retro or vintage, or kind of like a Harley Davidson versus, a malt and but yeah, so it's interesting to see what everybody prefers. So without further ado, let's see if this works. You guys see my screen okay?
Oh yeah.
So in this episode, we're going to talk about the 1960s and our favorite cardboard from that era. So this is the second installment. I did an episode a couple of weeks ago with Jason, Everyday Card Collector, and Aaron of Value Vintage Cards, which was a wonderful episode. I thought this would be a fun thing to do with the 60s, and we'd go by decade. So I had you guys send me your picks a couple of weeks ago, and separately, so we weren't biased, and we could kind of make our kind of our preferences, and then compare and see kind of where we ended up. So the purpose of this, just kind of showing some beautiful cardboard and looking at some classic cards, consulting with the experts. And as we know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and we'll see kind of what draws our attention to certain cards. So we've talked about the nationally recognized card experts. We got Borat, we got the president, we got a terrifying picture of Aaron and Jason blinking. So yeah, we got some great experts there. And so let's talk a little bit about today's expert panel. We got Joe, Redneck Collector, who is going to give us some expert opinions here. He's got a wonderful channel. And we also have Steve, Vintage on Vintage. So we had some fun AI generated artwork there. And then we have myself, obviously, with the wind blowing through my hair. So, it's just what the AI generated, guys. I can't control this.
Yeah.
It's not out of my
Somebody
control.
spent a little bit more time on his own than ours, but that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah. So we got three experts, and we're going to start with the reveal. We're going to start with Joe, then go to Steve, and then myself, and we'll see kind of what we had in common. So let's start with some of the rules. So the rules were to pick your two favorite cards from, oh, actually, I didn't update that. Sorry. From 1960 to 69. Okay. And cards should be chosen based upon their aesthetics, not their market value. And iconic Hall of Fame players and their cards are fair game, but don't forget about the little guys. Okay. So let's start with 1960. So Joe, you picked some beauties. Tell us a little bit about why you picked the cards you did.
So this was one, I mean, all of them I went back and forth a little bit, but this one, it was hard. This is, I think, one of, in the 60s, this is one of Mantle's, I think, most beautiful cards. I love the design of the 60 set. To me, it screams 1960. I love that it's got the kind of the portrait shot, or there's got the bat on his shoulder, but then we got the other image of him swinging. I think it's a great Mantle card. I think it just captures, and he's still in his prime here, right? He's still mashing, and he's had some health injuries, but I just think it's a great picture of the Mick. And then with Yastrzemski, I just think this is one of the most beautiful cards ever made, period. I know these are two iconic ones, and maybe they're a little too on the nose, but because this set's got a lot of great players in it, but just that portrait of a young Yaz with the the 60 rookie star design. I love that design. I love it when they dig it out for archives, like Aaron Judge rookie that's in this design. I just love that rookie star design. But to have a guy as great as Yaz, I just think these two cards probably You know, they're a little bit on the nose. They're a little bit more higher value from the set, but I think they capture the beauty of what is one of the greatest sets Topps has ever produced.
For sure. For sure. I think those are two excellent picks. Do you have any predictions about, you think you shared any of these with Steve? Do you think you had any commonalities there, or do you think
I don't know what to expect there. I mean, I watch
Yeah.
Steve's channel a lot, but there are so many great cards in here. I could think of another 10. I could rattle off
Yeah.
10 right now that I think are honorable mentions. So I'd be surprised if he picked two that were outside of these two or the other 10 I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
The interesting thing about the Yaz is it's kind of like a keyhole look at his 61, which is
Yes.
always the full image, but just like you're looking through the keyhole, you have the red, white, and blue kind of ribbon there. And so some people love the rookie for just that kind of look, or some people love the full image of him in 61. I think both are fantastic cards for sure. So let's see what Steve thought. Oh, so Steve did share some with you. Hold on, I lost my light. What were you thinking, Steve?
Well, I agree. This is probably one of the toughest sets for me to make the call on because there are so many great cards. Like I love the mantle. I love the Brooks Robinson card in this one.
Yeah.
There's just certain colors to it.
Yeah.
The Yaz was an easy choice for me. I agree with Joe. I just think it's a beautiful card. I love the coloring on it. It's a classic. The Hodges home run, I'm a bit of a homer, right? I'm a Dodger fan, but
Mhm.
what I like is this is almost like I'm sitting in the stands, right? And I can see the other fans. There's beautiful coloring. You've got the Dodger uniform. I just think it's a classic photo. And it's one of my favorite in the set. So that's why I chose that one.
That's great. Now, this is a more general question. We're looking at the 60 set. How do you guys feel about horizontal cards versus vertical cards?
I mean, variety is the spice of life. I love that, we've got a set like 1960 Topps, but I'm glad not every set is like 1960 Topps. I
Yeah.
guess would be the way I'd put that.
You
Yeah, I
know
would
what?
agree. It works for 60. It works really
Yeah.
well for 60, and I love it. But yeah.
I love horizontal cards. My one frustration with them is displaying them.
Yeah.
Because then horizontal next to vertical, and so you have
Especially
to
if they're slabbed.
Yes, exactly. So if you have an SGC horizontal slab card, that's like your whole table right there, right?
Yep.
So you got to be creative about how you display these with the footprint. So, all right. So I picked two, pretty classic ones. I think, again, I think 60 is a wonderful set. The Ernie Banks, I just love the youthful kind of image on his expression. He's kind of looking off and, in deep thought. And then he's got the action batting pose and even the color scheme on it. I just think is so cool. And the old Cubs logo. I mean, I just love that. That's just fantastic. All around fantastic card. Similarly with the Clemente, uh, again, I love the colors on the card. I love the old Pirates logo. The old logos are just so fantastic, and just the mix and pop of color, and the overall you get double image of the player. Other than them calling him Bob, it's a great card all around. So I think the Yaz for sure would have made the list as well. As with the mantle, I like the mantle a lot as well. I had never, truthfully, I don't think I had seen the Hodges card before, but I think that's a fantastic card as well. So I think all in all, I think we picked some blazers right out of the gate here.
Yeah, one thing about the 60s, and I think about this, the mantle, and I think the Brooks Robinson definitely show this, but the alternating colors on the letters in the name, right? Some of them hit really, really well, and I like the mantle because of that. I think the Brooks Robinson, they all work. I like the Clemente, I like the Ernie, but like that black and red and some of the colors that they do with those alternating letters, just really, really cool.
That's I love that observation.
Yeah, this set, we didn't even touch on the All-Star cards, and the All-Star cards are really cool too with the black shading. I mean, This set in the 60s, it's there like this set, probably this set in 65 are my two favorites in the 60s. But I love this set. It's a beautiful set. And there's a lot of cards to choose from.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We probably could have picked double the number of cards and had
Yes, easy.
more to spare. This is a great, there's just a lot to choose from for sure. Well, let's go on to 61. Okay. Again,
right.
starting with you, Joe. Again, you picked some fantastic cards. Tell us a little bit about what attracts you to these.
So first of all, I'm gonna go on record based on the most recent live stream or whatever when they were ranking the sets. Right, I like 61 gets bagged on a lot. I like 61. I think it captures. I think it feels. And they all feel like 60 sets because we know they're 60 sets. But I just, yeah, it's kind of simple. But I really like 61. It's probably one of my more favorite sets. I'll just say it. Maybe I like it because it's underrated. But for Maris, it's like such an iconic image of a guy who has one of the greatest, most storied seasons. So maybe I'm biased for that too, but I think it's a great image.
Mm-hmm.
But just to capture Maris in 61 on a card, the look on his face, kind of looking over. I don't know. I just very stoic, and I really, really enjoy it a lot. And then for Ernie, I think the kids would call that a color match. That's why I love that so much. That blue on blue, fantastic. And that picture of him, I always like Ernie's exuberance. I think it comes through in his images, like we talked before. Whereas Maris kind of comes across like he's pissed off, like he's dealing with a lot of stuff and stress, and he's not comfortable in New York, right? Yeah. Where Ernie's always like, "Let's play two." You can just he's just exuberant in everything he does, and I think both of these images capture two great players, but two polar opposites in personality.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic observation on that, particularly with what Maris probably was feeling and going through being a Yankee and threatening the record of, the most beloved Yankee and feeling, I don't know, was he a pretty introverted guy overall? I don't know a whole lot about his personality, but compared to
I think he was pretty quiet by nature.
Yeah.
He wasn't outgoing. He wasn't a big partier. He was more of a family man, kind of quiet. And he definitely, I mean, the stress he was under when he was breaking that record was immense.
Right.
Yeah, growing up in Fargo, North Dakota, and then ending up in the Big Apple, I think that's it's a culture shock for people.
Right. Well, you can see that in the image, right? If you look at the image itself, it really tells a story about him for sure.
It does. It's a great card. That card was on my list of cards, Joe. That's a beautiful card.
It's a beautiful card.
Thank you. I enjoy, and that's one I don't own. I got to get me a copy of that. I haven't done that yet.
It's a great card.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, well, let's see. Steve picked some beauties. Okay, tell us about your choices.
So I'll start with the bottom one. I'm going back to Yastrzemski again. I think I love both his cards, his 60 and his 61. I know it's a lot of the same picture, but this card, you get the full shot. I just think the color is absolutely gorgeous in the card. I love it. I just love that card. And the top card, Henry Aaron, well, he's my favorite ball player. Like that's my favorite player. He looks so young in this photo of him. He's in his uniform, and it almost looks like, he's almost like an infielder, and he came up as an infielder when he was younger, right? In the Negro Leagues, he was a shortstop. He had a little bit of problems throwing the ball, so they moved him to the outfield. But this is just like this. I mean, he's in the peak of his career here, but he's still such a young Henry Aaron, as opposed to the one I saw break Babe Ruth's record when I was like 10 years old. So
when you say saw break Babe Ruth,
I was 12 years old. I actually saw it on TV. We were watching that game on TV. I remember I've told this story. My mom wanted to go to dinner. I told my dad, Henry Aaron's coming up next inning. He said, okay, we can watch some more. And he hit the home run, that's awesome. Was really cool. Yeah.
Wow. That's just quite the flashbulb memory, I'm sure, that you carried with you. That's fantastic to be a part of history. And now, I just didn't have, I would have loved to have witnessed that. That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Two great choices. I actually think the 61 Yaz I like better than his 60. because I feel like you're cutting off a huge chunk of a wonderful card when you look through the keyhole of the 60. To me, then you got kind of the background, you got the sky, you got the star, you got his whole, more of his, face, neck, and overall, appearance. And then the colors on top of that with the red, Boston hat, and then the color scheme with the red and the yellow and all the, it's just the whole card pops.
And it's his real rookie season, right?
Yeah. So I like that card better than his 60. The Hank Aaron I love. When I got back into the hobby, it was actually one of the first cards I bought because that card just spoke to me. So I like his kind of youthful appearance. To me, there's something about when a player is young and has all that potential. Like I enjoy collecting their earlier cards. When they're older, I don't know why. It's like I find them a little depressing sometimes when you see like guys that have stuck around, like late Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, where you have the really, late career cards, where it's just like, they're not in their prime anymore, and they've kind of like they're kind of burning out, But so these are fantastic cards of very youthful players that still have a lot of potential and a lot to fulfill. So. All right, so my two, similarly, I agree with Steve, and I added the Juan Marichal rookie card. Again, I really love that card. I think his, bright smile, his youthful appearance, his jersey, just kind of very full of energy, and I've always loved that card. I just feel like it's just a beautiful card. I don't know how, what else I could say about it.
Oh, I would agree. I think you guys picked some good ones. This, like I said, I think this is an underrated set. I think the Yaz almost reminds me of like, an image. You could take that image and place it on a tobacco card, and it would look like at home, right? It's just a very like cool, the way the background is and everything. It's artwork. That is the type that you could blow up in a 16 by 19 frame or something, put it on your wall, and it's like art.
Yeah. And that card in particular seems like that, and even the Marichal a little bit, seems like it has more of an artistic rendering to it versus the photographic image like you have with the rest of those. Like it looks more like a painting than it does.
Yeah. The Yaz especially. The Yaz especially looks more like a painting.
Right.
The Marichal, to your point, they darkened it out a little in the background on purpose. It's just a different. It's a great card. Oh, it's one of my favorites also. But it is a lot different look and I think it works because then you've got him in his light giant uniform with his grin. It's a great picture.
It is a great one. Yeah. All right. Well, we had some good ones in 61. Are we ready to move on to 62? Okay.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorites right here.
62 is one. Okay. Well, let's see. So, Joe, 62, wood grain, wood paneling. This is a very polarizing set for a lot of people. Some people love it. Some people don't love it. What do you love about these cards that you picked?
So I guess once again, the wood paneling looks like something, like my, great grandparents' house or something. It looks like something that, it looks retro. But also, my first set that I ever like collected hardcore that my grandpa and I put together was 87 Topps. So of course I love that wood grain, and this is the original, the OG wood grain is this. So I love it, and I love Lou Brock. Even though he's in that Cub uniform, he's man.
Yeah.
Luckily he got out of that. He probably would have never made it with the Cubs, but no. But youthful, but almost like timid looking, right? It's like you can tell he's a young guy. There he is, and and it's capturing just once again. You talk about look at Lou Brock 79 or 78 or 77 Topps. He looks like a guy that But when you're an all-time great, the game doesn't necessarily tell you when you're done. If you're a middling player, the game tells you when you're done. When you're an all-time great, you can hang around if you want to, and that's what a lot of these guys did. So this is the antithesis of that. Like when I met Lou, and I was able to get autographs from him, when I was younger, and he was an old man back then. So to see this youthful image of a guy that would go on to become one of the greatest Cardinals of all time, I love it. I have a penchant for, like so many of us do, for rookie cards. I'm probably a little biased just because it's got that rookie star up there. I like the rookie star. I like the rookie star and the other, like Gaylord Perry and the others from this set. But I love it. And then Sandy Koufax has so many great cards, but I just love this image of Sandy Koufax. I just think it's, and that the background, the sky, the Dodger uniform. I just think it's just such a great image of him that I don't know. It's hard to put into words why I like that one as much, but that's just one of my favorite images of Sandy.
Yeah, it is. Those are good picks. This is a tough set to find in good condition, to find centered, not chipped. Just kind of like with the 55 Bowman, this says 62s. It's tough to find beautiful 62s, but when you can find them like this, for sure, those are great cards. And so I agree. So, well, let's see if Steve agreed or if he had a different opinion. Okay, he picked some monsters as well. I can understand why you would like these, but why is it that you're drawn to these, and how do you feel about the 62 set?
62 set is not one of my favorites. It maybe because it's just so hard to collect. When you find a beautiful 62, it's a great card, right? But out of all the 60s, I mean, it's probably middle of the road for me. I prefer 69 over 62, believe it or not. But that's more of a nostalgic thing with me because I collected 69 as a kid. So, but these two cards are two of my favorites. I love one of the things you'll see on some of the selections. I'm drawn to pictures when you get some stars or key players together, and it looks like they're talking to each other, having a good time. It's before a game. I feel like I'm at that game and I'm waiting for these guys to be done with this photo shoot so I can scream for their autograph, right, as a kid. So that's that's why I'm drawn to these pictures. And that Clemente is just such a cool picture. I mean, I love the uniform, the batting cage in the background. Like it's one of my favorite cards of Roberto Clemente, and he doesn't have a bad card. But that's just a cool card.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fantastic cards, and I agree. One of the best dual player cards, A Manager's Dream, is for sure up there for a lot of people. I'm a big Venezuelan Topps collector, and these are three huge cards in the hobby: the Koufax, the Clemente, and the Manager's Dream. All big cards that are in the 62 Venezuela set that I would love to get the Manager's Dream. That one's gotten really pricey in Venezuela, but the Clemente and Koufax I love those cards. They're great cards. And so, yeah, I agree. I think the color scheme with the Pirates uniform and the wood panel, I think all of that stuff in the background, it all kind of fits together really well. So, I agree. I love that Manager's Dream card. It's one of my favorite dual player cards. You have two of the all-time greats together, posing together. And the Mini Minoso, I'm a big Mini Minoso collector, and I love the look of it, where he got his kind of dark cap, his kind of expression. He's holding the bat on his shoulder. It's the card background with the image of him, the Cuban American star. It just fits his persona. It fits his culture. It fits everything about it. It just kind of pairs so well with him as a person and a player that I just really love that card. And I love, Mini Minoso was so important to the hobby and so underappreciated even to this day for what he brought to the hobby. So again, he's somebody like Roberto Clemente. I think he has so many fantastic cards. So that one is one of my favorites. And also he has a 62 Venezuela, which I have, which is a nice little kind of spin on it, which I really like. So
That's awesome.
62.
Awesome.
Okay, so we made it through 62. And now we're going to go to 63. Okay. What do we think about 63?
So I enjoy the 63 set. It's not one of my most favorites, but I enjoy it. I love it. I love, the picture, the dual images again, the smaller picture in the circle. I think that's very cool. These are also pretty condition sensitive down in that blue, right? It's sometimes hard to find them that don't, or in the cut, they're not all blue, but I love blue. So these two are blue. So, but in the coloring down at the bottom, chipping sometimes. I think this is, one of my favorite Clemente cards. Like we said before, there's not a bad Clemente card, but just the kind of look on his face, it's something that's a little bit different image for me than some of the other, that he has. And I don't know, it's one that I think really kind of captures, him very well. And I wish it didn't say Bob like so many of them. It seems like a disservice that nothing we can do about it now. But and then for Stan the Man, that's his last card. That's the end of an era there in Cardinal Nation. And I think it's one that you can see it. He looks like an old man compared. You look at 48 Bowman, and you take it to this, and you just see a guy that gave his all in many years to the Cardinal organization, and is one of the greatest players ever to play the game. And I just think and his classic batting pose down in the smaller circle too, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
Adds to the image because he's got that, one of those signature stances, if you will.
Yeah, he's got a beautiful stance.
He's a guy that is way undervalued for as great a player. I mean, when you look at his records, he's one of the top 4 or 5 hitters of all time. I mean, he was just a fantastic ball player.
Yeah, I mean, he played in a market. If he had played for the Yankees, you'd be a totally different conversation about his legacy and his career, and his cards would be 10 times as expensive. So,
which part of me's glad they're not. Being a homer that I am with the Cardinals, I'm glad they're expensive enough. They're not exactly cheap, but I'm with you. Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't command mantle prices or anything like that.
You want a leaf, or you want some of the early stuff, you're gonna pay up. Or if you want a red heart or something, but for the most part, he's got some pretty affordable cards. If depending on
something like this card here, you can have a nice mid grade for under $100. So.
For sure. Okay, well, let's see. All right, Steve, tell us about your picks.
I love this Bucks Blasters card. I just, once again, it's what I just told you before. It's like I'm sitting in the stands, waiting for the game to start. And, I just love Pirates uniforms. Pirates and the Reds have some of the best uniforms, especially back in the 60s. They're just great uniforms. You've got people in the stands. I like it. It's one of my favorite cards in that set. And then the Power Plus is, as a matter of fact, it's a card that I was looking at trying to purchase today because I love that card too, right? It's just got great color. You've got a young Ernie, you've got a young Henry. I just love the color scheme of the card. I love the old uniforms. It screams 1963 for me.
For sure. Those are great picks. All right. Well, I agreed with you, Steve, on the Power Plus. It's one of my favorite dual player cards. You got Ernie Banks, you got Hank Aaron. Love the colors on that card. So that's up there with one of my favorites. The Bob Uecker was maybe not the best baseball player, but had a fantastic second career as an announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers, and I've always loved him. And so any playing days cards of him, I just have, for me, it's maybe the nostalgia of being a Milwaukee Brewers fan and hearing his voice, and growing up. So I've always, enjoyed his playing days cards as well. So seeing him in a more youthful time in his life. So.
Now let's not forget about his acting chops too. I mean, Mr. Belvedere in Major League.
Major League, one of the best baseball movies of all time. For sure. He had 3 careers, right?
That's right.
Yeah, 63, maybe not my favorite set, and probably I would be, willing to guess maybe not most collectors' favorite set from the 60s, but they got some good ones for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to 64.
All right.
All right, Joe, we can pick some good ones. Tell us about these.
So, 64, just like 63, not one of my favorites, but at the same time, has so many great cards. Let's face it, I'm happy to get a card from any year from the 60s. I'm excited when I get it. But
Yeah.
on this one here, I look at, Gibson, who, it's Cardinal. I'm probably influenced a little bit, as the Cardinal homer, but I think of Gibson in 64, and I think of the World Series. And, this one, the look on his face is not that of the I'm going to beam you in the face intimidator that is on some of these other cards. He's looks like maybe they caught him on a good day.
Almost smiling. They might have
He's kind of a little bit of a smile
scowl.
cracking. Yeah, so I think that's he seems almost human, not the intimidator that he could be on the mound. And probably influenced a little bit by, like the fact that they had such a great year that year. And I love the 64 Cardinals story and the team set and everything. So that just kind of captures that essence for me. And then, I'm not I want to own a Pete Rose rookie card, just like I want all the great rookie cards, but multiplayer rookie cards are, they're not the most beautiful, aesthetic, pleasing, items that we've got in the hobby, right? So many times we have these second-year cards that are the trophy adds so much for me, and I think it does a lot of collectors. But especially back when they did, the '60s, we had the big trophies, right? The '80s, we had the little rinky-dink cup, but in the '60s, there was this big, bad trophy. And I just think the youthful Pete Rose, for me, I think of Pete Rose like, in his final years as player manager and manager, right? So when I see this youthful Charlie Hustle, I think it's just really neat. And I think this is probably, in my opinion, it's Pete Rose's best card. So
100% agree.
Love it.
I agree. Hands down, that's my favorite Pete Rose card.
Yep. And so much better than his rookie. Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Right?
I want the rookie. I don't have it. I want it, but this is a better card.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the floating head cards.
No.
I'm going to be honest with it. I'm just
They're
not.
they're weird. They're not aesthetically pleasing to me either. So I agree. All right. So some different ones. Okay. From Steve, we had the Topps Giants there, and then AL Bombers. All right. So what are your thoughts on these?
That Topps Giant Aveda Pinson is just one of my favorite cards. I love everything about it. If you got the name in the baseball, you've got that Reds uniform, and their hat, which is classic. He's got the bat with the pine tar thrown over his shoulder. He's happy. He's young. I just love this picture. And I'm lucky enough to have that card in an 8.5, and it's just a beautiful card. So that one just jumps out to me. And next to the Rose was the one I was struggling with, but I love this AL Bombers card. It's just a classic, right? You've got 4 of the best hitters of that year, or those early '60s, in Kaline and Cash and Maris and Mantle, and it's just a classic card and one of my all-time favorite cards.
It's a great card.
Great picks.
Good picks so far. Very strong, guys. All right. So I had some agreement with Joe, and so I agree on the 64 Rose. I probably don't need to rehash everything you said. I agree with. I think it's his best card, and love that card. Also, being a Venny guy, that's a very popular card for the Venny installment, and then the Henry Aaron. I love the youthful look on him. I love the green in the card. I love the background. I love his expression, his hat, everything about it. It does have like a weird line going from his cheek all the way through his upper lip. And I don't know if I've never known what that is. It's not like, I don't think he has a scar there, but I see it on that card. I didn't know if you guys had any insight about that.
Yeah, I've seen that before on that card, and I don't think it's just him. I think McCovey's card's the same way. I don't know what it is. It's not. At first, when I saw my version of it, I thought, well, does that have a crease? It's not. It's just
right.
I've never noticed it. I'm looking at my copy right now, and I see exactly what you're talking about. It almost looks like I think it's a shadow. I think it's
Maybe
a
it
shadow from the
probably
lighting.
is, because for it to be on every card, it probably is a shadow. But I always
Shadow from the lighting they used.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. Still a great card.
Oh
But
yeah, I love it.
I love that card.
great card. That's also both of those are in the 64 Vinny set. Both very tough cards to come by, but great cards. Okay, let's moving on to 65. Okay, so here's some interesting ones. I'd like to hear what your thoughts were on these ones, Joe. What's going on with
Well,
the
so
people?
just thinking a little bit different. 65's got a lot of great cards, but some of the poses get kind of tired and hashed out, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's rehashed to death. And in 65 here, you got Stengel. The character, his, now with the Mets, moving on from the Yankees, but he's still the I don't know, gregarious, cranky, all these things mixed together, right? Manager, like he's the press love him, the players either love him or hate him, it seems. He's got his favorites, and he's just a character, right?
Yeah.
And I just think this captures it perfectly, that he's just sitting there almost like he's holding court.
Yeah.
He's getting his picture taken, and he's kind of basking in it, because he wanted some of that limelight on him. And I just think that captured the character that was Casey Stengel perfectly, right? And it's just a little something different. And then for Yaz, it's just like so many staged photos, right? I'm sure there's other ones that are staged like this, but it's just so like over the top, like pantomime. Hey, Yaz, play like you got this pop fly coming at you.
Right,
Oh, okay,
right.
and it almost doesn't look natural. You wouldn't think the guy even like played baseball. He was just,
No, it doesn't look
yeah,
natural.
it's just
That's
like
what I thought was
it's
so interesting about
over
that.
exaggerated, and I just
Yeah.
think it's a fun image, so I enjoy it.
That's cool. Okay. Well, that's all right. So let's see. And Steve, let's see if we had any agreement there. Okay, you had some different ones. All right. What are your thoughts on these ones?
Well, I'm a Dodger homer. I love Koufax. I love the coloring of this. When you go back to 64, another card that I love is the Giant of Koufax, and it's virtually the same image, but I like the coloring better with the orange. I think this is one of Koufax's best cards. He's staring down at you. I like it a lot. The one on the bottom, I just think is a cool action shot. And it's got a lot of detail in the background. Although the funny thing about it is, if you read about this card, I don't believe any of that stuff took place. Like, it looks like he's hitting a home run, but the actual photo, he missed the pitch. Gibson wasn't pitching, but they turned this into its own little card, and it's just kind of cool.
So they stayed. The image was
Yeah,
not
so I
from
gotta put
his
my
home run at
glasses on
all.
because I'm blind.
Was it
But
just a random at bat that they tried
so
to
that
recreate?
Yeah, that pitcher is a pitcher. They took a swing of Mantle, but he didn't hit the ball in that one. And then the catcher, I believe, is McCarver, and he was in he was in a different spot, but they moved it. And the actual pitcher wasn't Gibson. They brought Gibson in. It's just nothing about this card, I believe, is real, other than the fact that it's a great looking card.
That's wild, though, right? Like the
Yeah.
card itself that it's supposed to depict is not even what they're depicting. I would have known that. That's really interesting. Okay. Wow. All right. So here are my choices. We got a Lou Brock in there in honor of Joe. I just love this picture of a big smile. I love the colors, the black and the red, the Cardinals, the pennant and the logo, the uniform. I just think that's a great card, color scheme wise.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It was on my short list. I
Yeah,
enjoyed the card a
I
lot.
love that picture, that image of Lou Brock. And then the Yogi, what I like about this card is its grittiness, right? Like he's kind of shiny, he's sweaty, he's a player that was always like playing his heart out, right? Yet he's got that just rich, like amused look and smile on his face. Like that's how he lived life, was just a very joyful person, and that kind of captures it, uh, in his later career. And I just love that. I love that about him. It's just, he's just a very pure soul. And so that's what I liked about it.
For sure. He's one of my
Yeah.
favorites, one of my guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, all he ever wanted to do is play ball. That's all
Yep.
he ever wanted to do is play ball, and his whole life was built around either playing or managing or coaching in baseball.
Yep.
Yeah. He was fantastic and such a fantastic person and so much success. So, all right, guys. Well, let's moving on to 66. Great year. Joe, you picked some classics.
Yep. And so just for those of y'all that may have never watched my channel or don't know about it, 66 is my favorite of the entire 60s. And a lot of people hate this set. It's mine because of the nostalgia. Steve, you talked about, even though I wasn't alive in 66, I was gifted. And I talk about this in one of my videos on my channel, but I was gifted quite a few 66 cards when I was about 10 years old. And I was collecting cards very hardcore at that point, and this person knew it, and he gifted me his childhood 66s, and it left such an impression on me that I absolutely love this set. I almost never turn down picking up some nice 66 cards, even the ones that I have. Like I have multiple copies of both of these cards here. And I like the Willie because just the smile, the look. I just looks like somebody who's still, he's getting a little bit older, but he's still playing ball, and it's just I don't know, just a very casual shot. I feel like, right, just like, hey, Willie. It's almost like, hey, Willie, get a picture, and they snap this photo of him, it just, I think it captures Willie Mays, to a T, a guy that I have a lot of respect for. And then for Sandy Koufax, it's almost like it looks like somebody told him his dog just died. He's just kind of this somber look, but here's a guy that, this is the end of his career, right? A guy that's battled a lot of, injuries and overcome a lot, but has, almost, Sandy Koufax is like Barry Sanders, right? Like what might have been if we got another 5 years of peak Sandy Koufax, so, but I just like this card. A lot of people probably are like, it's so plain Jane, or it's kind of depressing looking. But I like it. I think it captures this set so well.
I think people, that's what fascinates so many people about Sandy Koufax, like the what could have been, you going out at your peak. But I think he knew that he had pitched so hard during that span and had that injury that if he felt he couldn't pitch to that level and was going to have on top of that long-term disability, I don't know. It is a very interesting exercise to talk. I've thought about it a lot, but ultimately, I think he did the right thing because now he lives on in this larger than life kind of image of him in his career. So
he was worried. He was worried he was going to lose the use of his arm. That's how bad the pain he was in, and has to be a tough decision to be the best in the world at what you do, but and still in your prime, and know that the right thing to do is walk away. Tough decision. And I would tell you the last thing, that Mays card I think is his last great card. Like that's the last one. He looks really happy. And then as you start to see the net letter years, he just starts to look older. He looks like an older player. But I love that card. That's a great picture.
You have two very, contrasting careers, right? Someone who stuck around a very long time, and someone who left at their peak.
Well, Willie was the epitome. Honestly, they would have probably paid him if he wanted to play, put butts in seats for a few more years. They probably would have let him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's see what Steve. Okay. So Steve's got some fantastic choices. Tell us about your cards.
I love this Gibson card. It's one of my favorites of his. The coloring, the red, the yellow, it just pops. It's a great picture of Mr. Gibson, one of my all-time favorites of his. And then the one below, that's actually just one of my favorite cards ever.
Greatest league leaders card ever. Greatest league leaders card ever.
Hands down. And for me, right, I was born at tail end of 60. So in like 68, 69, 70, I was, 7, 8, 9. And these three guys, I grew up as a National League fan because you were National League or American League. These three guys were it. It just didn't get better than, Mays, they had a song about him, and then Clemente had that 71 World Series, and then his tragic death, and then you get to watch Hank Aaron break the home run record. So this card probably ties in why I collect vintage cards almost more than any card out there.
Wow.
That's
Well,
awesome.
that's fantastic. Wow. I agree. That's a fantastic card. Probably one of the best tri-player cards in existence. So for sure. Okay. Um, so I had, certainly a very underappreciated player, Jim Palmer. I'm still shocked at how affordable this card is, but I think it's a fantastic card. I love the youthful image, stance, the colors. Uh, the Don Sutton, similarly, I just think it's a cool looking card. I think he's an his image, his kind of oversized ears, his overall look. I just think that's just his youth. It's just a very cool. Like I don't normally like dual rookie cards, but this one I really like. I probably would have liked it better if he was a solo player on it, but I think he's also fantastic, and I love that image as well. And again, the loyalty to the Venezuelans, that's another very popular Venezuelan variety as well, as is the Palmer, has gotten very popular too. So
Yeah,
and
Sutton looks like he looks like he just walked off his high school baseball team in
he
that
does,
picture. He looks
yeah,
so darn young. And I agree with you on Palmer. I don't get it. Like
yeah,
Seaver and Palmer were the two best pitchers of the 70s in my opinion. And he's dirt cheap and a great pitcher.
yeah, yeah. That's the fascinating thing about this hobby, right? I mean,
Yep.
but yeah, for fantastic cards.
And I'd like to point out, Topps missed an opportunity of not having Don Sutton and Don Mossy on the same card for some. That was a missed opportunity.
That would have been a classic, right? Oh, all right. Well, moving on to 67. Okay. So 67, Joe, what are your thoughts on these ones?
So I love the 67 set because of it's pretty well, the very little border, almost full bleed image. I always appreciate that very much. And I'm biased on this Mantle probably because it was my first Mickey Mantle card that I got. My grandpa and I bought together at a card show, 30 some odd years ago now at this point. And even though it's old man Mantle at the end of his career, he's still got that smile. I just think it captures the whereas 60. We talked about earlier. He's still in his prime and his youth. This is old man Mantle, but he can still hit the ball when he gets a hold of one. When he can hobble to the plate on those knees, and just love this close up really of him. I think it's great. And then combo cards have grown on me a lot as I evolve in my collecting. When I was a kid, I didn't want very many combo cards, but this was one of the ones I wanted. Being a Cardinal fan and Lou Brock and Kurt Flood, I just think it's great. I love the pose, down on one knee with the bats and the red undershirts and I just a great all time card and picture for me.
For sure. Fantastic card, and two very under valued players of the hobby. Certainly Kurt Flood,
especially Kurt Flood, yes.
Like for what he meant to baseball history and players' rights. And so, the fact that he's not given more credit and more hobby love, I don't understand it. It's bizarre. But fantastic choices. I like that. That's actually the Mickey Mantle. So that is probably a polarizing mantle. Do you think for people?
I think so. Yeah.
People don't love that card. It's grown on me a lot. But and that probably goes back to there's a 67 Venezuelan mantle that I really like. It's kind of a little bit a similar kind of image, but a little more kind of muted because it's a Venezuelan. But I like that card. All right, so two fantastic cards as well. Steve, tell us about these ones.
I love that Perez card. It's the uniform. Once again, it's that Reds uniform. the cutoff sleeves, the red shirt underneath, the hat. You see the players in the stadium in the back. It's that and his rookie cup card, I think, is two of my favorites. But that's one of my favorite Perez cards of all time. It's just a great card. Um, and the Seaver rookie. What I like about, I'm not a huge fan of the 67 set. I know it's a really hard set to collect, especially the high numbers, but I do like the color scheme on the rookies, and especially this Mets one, the blue and the yellow and the red. It just pops and it looks,
Yeah.
I just love the look of it. And it's Tom Seaver's rookie card, so you can't go wrong with that.
Yep. That's one of the dual player cards that actually is very nicely done. Yeah, I like it a lot too. Okay, so I picked a couple of my favorites. I mean, Ernie Banks just has so many great cards. He's got such a so much energy, and his smile, one of the best smiles, I think,
Absolutely.
in the
Yeah.
Oh,
game,
yeah.
lights up the room. And this is I just think a fantastic, almost looks a little bit like artistic rendering, like a painted version, and it just a beautiful image of him between the uniform, the hat, the bat, and the smile. I love it. Similarly with the Brooks Robinson, also to me kind of has that. I guess he's what, 10 years in at this point, but
Yep.
still to me has somewhat of a youthful look to him. And I like his overall smile and his stance and just how he's looking at the camera. I think they did a good job posing with a lot of the players in this 67 set. They did a good job with the poses and how they had them pose for some of these photos, because I think they're really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed. Yep. I love the Ernie. It was on my short list.
Yeah, the Ernie's fantastic, but I think we all had great picks for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, so now going to 68. This is a little bit of a polarizing set, maybe not.
Not for me, because I'm not. Even though this is burlap, not wood, I enjoy the
You
68
like
immensely.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So
will say it's the hardest set for me to gauge when I go to gauge grading on it, because
Yes.
the burlap, I just can't decide whether. I've been burnt so many times on 68 cards getting them graded. I'll think, oh, that's a solid 5 or 6, and it's a 3. But
Yeah.
but as far as the image, part of it is on this now this is the opposite of the 64 Gibson. This is the intimidator. This is the guy that goes out and has a 1.12 ERA in 68,
Yeah.
and causes the mound to be lowered, and all these stories. That's the guy. That's the other look. There is just this is the guy that you do not dig in against Bob Gibson, and I think it captures that part of his persona perfectly. And then below it, as much as I like the Seaver rookie, I just love this image of Seaver, and the once again we got the big gold rookie cup, and he's kind of doing that thing where he's looking off into the distance or whatever. I don't know. I just think this is a fantastic card. This is as much as I think the Seaver rookie is much better than the Rose rookie. Much better.
Yes.
The same situation, I still like this card better than the rookie. I think it's probably his best card.
Yeah, I think
Good card.
the theme for a lot of these cards is the second year card, not on everybody, but for some of these players, the solo second year card is, the majority of the time for me, is my more favorite card than the dual player rookies.
Yeah.
Not always, but certainly this would be the case with Tom Seaver. Okay. All right. So some more multiplayer cards here from Steve. Loving those multiplayers.
I love the multiplayer cards, but Joe, those two cards that you picked were on my short list also. I love them. But, these cards, if you look at the bottom, right, those are just three of the best players of the era. So it's just a classic picture, right? It's right before an all-star game. It's a great picture. And the one above, I think, even has the color pops better. And the thing that I like about these are three Hispanic players, right? And you didn't have a lot of that. I don't remember too many cards where you had multi-players and they were all Hispanic superstars out of the game. And the game was transitioning because, in the late 60s, there were a lot more Hispanic players that were starting to become the better players in the league at the time. So I've always liked that card for that reason.
for sure.
Absolutely. Two great ones. I like that.
For sure. Okay. So, couple of things. One is, yeah, the Seaver was on my list, and so was the Gibson. So Joe and I were in complete agreement on that. I added this other Gibson card, which is a proof. I just found it on eBay. I thought it just was very interesting. It's a proof from that 68 set, where I think there's only like two or like three that exist, where
I've never seen that. I didn't know that existed.
left-handed pitching proof that they have of Gibson, and I'd never seen it. And I'm like, oh, I got to throw that on there because I just thought that was interesting.
It's really cool.
The back
Yeah,
is
super
blank
cool.
and have like charcoal writing on it. I don't know if they were mocking up a potential card for the set that they axed, but I just thought that was interesting piece of card history. So I threw that in there. But
That's awesome.
yeah. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, Joe, on the Gibson and the Seaver. Not a whole lot to belabor that. I do agree with what you were saying on condition, not knowing these cards when it comes to their. I don't know if it's something with how the coloring of the kind of
Yeah. The
like
burlap plays tricks on the
burlap
eyes.
coloring makes it
Yeah.
hard to see these corners.
Yep.
And so some of these, they can look like, you can see one that looks like a 4 and a 6 look the same, or like a 3 and a 7, so it's so hard to know. But yeah, I think it's certainly a good set. So interesting observation. Nobody picked the Nolan Ryan rookie card.
It's iconic, but I don't think it's the most beautiful.
Okay.
I
Fair.
wouldn't argue
Fair.
iconic, but I wouldn't say beautiful.
So that
I would have gone. The one rookie card I thought about was the bench rookie card because he's got the hat on backwards, right? He was doing the Griffey before Griffey. That one to me is a cooler picture.
So no bench and no Ryan. Both great dual player cards, but didn't make the list. Okay.
It was close for me.
It was
The bench
close.
was close for me.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, last year in the 60s, finishing strong here. Okay.
So there's a pattern here, but I'll start with Reggie Jackson. I just think, I'm probably a little bit biased because it's iconic rookie, and I love rookie cards. But there's the young Mr. October, in his A's jersey going back. That's that retro looking jersey. Just the youthful exuberance, and this guy's going to go on to hit whatever 570 home runs or whatever he's got. And I just think it's one of the all-time great rookie cards. So rookie card bias probably coming through on that.
Yeah.
And then talking about bench, there it is. There's the gold trophy, the awesome. He's down in the crouch, the staged crouch, kind of the half. I'm turned towards the camera crouch. Doesn't quite look natural, exposed, but I love it. I've obviously got a thing for those second year cards, and this one is no exception because I love the rookie bench because, like you said, Steve, the hat turnaround backwards and the youthful Johnny Bench, but I think this one takes the cake.
So you would say that the second year is your favorite?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. These are great cards. The 69 is such a tough set when it comes to layout and centering. It's almost impossible to find perfectly centered 69s. I feel like, I don't know if you guys have run across, I know you guys do a lot of grading.
Oh yeah.
It's a tough set. The Reggie's really tough. Most of them are like off or miscut. And, but when you find a beautiful one like that with a nice baby blue, and he's nothing like it. Same thing with the bench, just beautiful cards, worthy to be on the list for sure.
Well, the other thing about 69 is Topps was having a struggle with the Players Association, so they had to used a lot of older pitchers. So a lot of the same pitchers that you'll see will show up from different cards, just different angles, different pitchers. So it's hard to get newer cards or a different look, I guess is the way to think about it.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Okay. Well, let's see. Okay, so a partial agreement from Steve on the bench, and then the Ernie. Fantastic. What do you think of
that's hands down my favorite bench card, period. As a matter of fact, I think it's one of the better cards of the entire decade. I love the bench card, the uniform, the catcher's mitt. He's got such a baby face in that picture. It's just a classic I love the card. And Ernie Banks, you know, I had to, like you guys, I had to get my Smiling Ernie in
Yep.
somewhere in the
Yeah.
60s. This, you know, I think it's actually the same picture as the 68, but it's
Yeah.
just different. The nice thing about it, though, is the color scheme doesn't have the burlap. It's got the blue, it's got the white. You know, this is the tail end of his career, yet he still looks like he's a 24-year-old and enjoying the game every day. So I love that card. And
Right.
I like this set a lot.
And you got the old Cubs, the
Yep.
Cubs logo on there. I love that. That's great. Great cards. So I had some agreement there on the Reggie. The Reggie's one of my favorite cards from the 60s. I love that kind of baby blue background with his athletics uniform, and even the purple and the yellow. I mean, it's just popping with all sorts of color, and he kind of has that kind of look, has youthful image, and just I love the blue. Really stands out to me is that baby blue. Is just I love that. I think all of it goes together really well. And then the Nolan Ryan. This is another example where I think the second year card to me I enjoy more than the rookie. Uh, with his kind of, again, look how young he looks. It's just blows my mind just how youthful he is there. And his overall pose stance, I think, is kind of a little odd, but kind of cool at the same time. And the color scheme on it as well. Uh, Again, a really tough card to find centered with good registration, with even like little things that I've looked at so many of these, like there's a little break in the border on the right side, and like 75% of them there don't have the full black border around it. So there's so much quality control issues with the 69s that sometimes hunting for a good version is exhausting. But when you find one, you just got to grab it because they're just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's another
Yeah.
one. I think it's a great image.
Yeah.
Second year image, another one right up there. Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It's my favorite Ryan. The other cards in this set that are cool, I'm surprised. I almost picked one. No one did. The All-Star cards, like the
Yes.
Gibson All-Star and the Pete Rose All-Star. They're just really cool looking cards. I love the color schemes on them.
They're
Yeah,
great.
I agree. The All-Star cards in this set are really nice.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, what were our overall impressions? So kind of closing it out here, we definitely looked at a lot of beautiful cards. Definitely a variety of opinions regarding the most beautiful cards compared to my episode from a few weeks ago. There's a lot more variety of opinions for the 60s than there is for the late 40s to 50s. So a lot more differing opinions in different cards, which I thought was really interesting. Just because maybe there's fewer of those absolute iconic cards that you have a bunch of those in the 50s. None of us agreed on all three on a card from all three of us. Partial agreement on 9 cards.
Mhm.
And yeah, less consensus between the last episode. So I thought it was a very interesting exercise in what people like and what draws them to certain cards, and uh, the beauty of a card and the nostalgia of a card, where Steve's maybe coming at it differently than the two of us would, because he's lived through some of that history himself. And so I thought that was just very interesting perspectives from you guys, and I appreciate you bringing that to the table tonight, because I thought this was a lot of fun. You guys have
This was a blast. Yeah. And I agree. There's like in the 50s, you got a few cards that and I can't remember, everybody on that episode, Josh, but I feel like 59 Topps, Frank Robinson is one of those cards that is just almost like universally loved. And there's not as many of those type things type of cards in the 60s. So I think that's where you get more of the variety.
You get more variety, exactly. And so there's more probably opinions about cards that you like, for sure. I think Jason picked the 59 Frank Robinson. I don't
He
remember.
did. He did. Yeah, I remember that. And I would have picked that card for that year too.
I probably would have too. That's why I threw that one out there, because I feel like the 50s maybe have a few more of those than maybe the 60s do. So
yeah, for sure. What are your any closing thoughts, Steve, that you brought? What was
Yeah,
your
no, first of all, it was a blast. So thank you
fun?
for letting me be
Absolutely.
part of this,
Of
because I
course.
had a great time. It'll be interesting to see what people, when they comment down below, what their choices are, because
Yeah.
I think you're going to get a lot more, just like us. I think we had a lot of similarities, but you're going to get a lot more variety, because there's just, people have different opinions on the 60s than they do in the 50s. So this was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Is your impression that people overall, if you had collectors, you think more collectors prefer late 40s and 50s or more collectors prefer 60s from a vintage standpoint?
I think more, I think a lot of people are gravitating more towards the 50s, right? It's some of those classic great cards, and I think and you see a lot of people now gravitating even more into the pre-war. I haven't
Mhm.
gone down the pre-war rabbit hole
Yeah.
because I collect football, baseball, and basketball, and I
Yeah.
like to keep it from 50 to about 90. So, but
Yeah.
I love the 60s, but I would guess more people would gravitate to the 50s in my opinion, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah. For sure. Well, certainly some beautiful cards from this era. So I appreciate you guys coming out and sharing this episode with me. Both brought some wonderful perspectives to this interesting exercise that I hope to continue with down the road. So I hope that hopefully, people watching at home found it interesting, and hopefully we'll have a lot more of these interesting episodes in the future. So I wanted to thank you guys again for coming out. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see in the comments down below. There's going to be some of those. I can't believe you guys forgot this card or whatever.
For sure.
I'll probably like, yeah, you're right. That's a great card, but
And I
that's the
don't
beauty of it.
and I don't need to say it because you guys have a pretty broad following, but if you've not already subscribed to these channels, you have to, because they're fantastic. And so I'm in the presence of greatness. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to spend a little time with me having this conversation. So thank you again, guys. I appreciate it.
I'm already looking forward to your 70s version. That's
Yeah,
gonna
there
be
you go.
fun.
Awesome.
Can't
It'll be a
wait.
lot of fun. Well, thanks again, guys. Have a good rest of the night, and until the next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.